March 1995. I've been a picture framer for a month, learning new skills, a job I enjoy, all the little secrets of picture framing, like using colored wax to fill in nail holes when you build a frame. I actually taught myself some things. The owner of the company just bought this business from somebody, and he taught me the basics of what to do. But then he had some books about fancier stuff, mat cutting, different designs. And I just took the books and I read them and I taught myself and got myself a raise. But you're not here to listen to me talking about picture framing. You want to know about the books I read in March of 1995. It wasn't a lot, only 5. Let me double check. Let me turn the page. Yep, that's it, just 5. And if you've watched the past 2 videos, you may notice a trend here that is going to continue, because the first book that I read in March of 1995 is The Marvel Superheroes, edited by Len Wein. I don't know. I've never known how to say his name. And Marv Wolfman. For pocketbooks, it's number 9, and it has, as you can see, the Hulk, the Avengers, the X-Men, and Daredevil. I love this cover. It's got my favorite version of Iron Man right there. It's got Nightcrawler on the cover, and it's just 4, right? 4 short stories featuring these characters. And then I followed that up with the Hulk and Spider-Man in Murder Moon. This is number 11. I don't know why I skipped number 10. That cover's okay. Not as nice as the other one. An American spy satellite is crashing to Earth. Everybody wants to get their hands on it. Spider-Man's trying to get to it. The Hulk's in his way. They're going to fight. I assume they're going to team up by the end. It's been a long time since I read it, so I don't recall. But you can see the theme. I was reading through all my Marvel pocketbook paperbacks from back in the day. Number 3 sort of continues the trend. It's another comic book novel. This is The Adventures of Superman by George Lothar. And this was a facsimile book. This novel was originally published in 1942. And the copy that I had and that I read was a facsimile. So it had, aside from a new introduction from Roger Stern, it was basically an exact duplicate of how it came out in 1942, except that the copy that I got had a printing mistake. I can't remember if this was, I think it was like 30 pages from the back were in towards the front, and then those pages from the front were in the back. But a group of pages were switched. Excuse me. But anyway, this is it was a weird book because it's 1942 Superman, so there's sort of this Boy Scoutishness to him, and I don't believe there's any like big super villain. It's just Superman going from adventure to adventure, fighting spies and crooks and these things, but he's also killing people. Like, he kills a lot of people in this book. So really, really interesting to me, especially again since it was from 1942. It has that old-timey flavor to it, but it's a really kind of a vicious Superman. All right, now we're going to move on a little bit. No more superheroes. Next up, Love and Glory by Robert B. Parker. I've talked about this many times because I've read it many times. Our main character, Boone, something, I believe. Smart guy. Just your average Joe. falls in love with a golden girl at college, but then he goes off to war, and she ends up marrying somebody else. When he comes back home after his time in the service, he hits the skids, as they say. For a while, he's homeless, and basically he's going to rebuild himself into the man he believes she deserves and win back her love. And it's an interesting character study. It's Robert B. Parker. It's well written. Obviously, I've read it many times, so I enjoy it. It has been a while. I think it would be interesting to read it now in light of today's society. See what I think of it, because it is very, Robert B. Parker, I don't think was ever misogynistic or sexist, or however you'd want to put it. I don't think his characters typically are his main characters, his hero characters, but they are still sort of, man's man. Even though, like Spencer would cook and would do, not that that's, typically growing up, like my parents, cooking is women's work. Sure, there are chefs, but we don't know about them, those male chefs. Of course, I'm expressing others' thoughts, not my own. And Spencer came out in the 70s, when it wasn't uncommon for people, both men and women, to think this way, that, a woman's place is in the kitchen, man doesn't do that. So I think that Robert B. Parker's characters were a little progressive, but they were still very, a man has to learn how to work with his hands and has to do this and certain things. So the whole point is, I wonder how this book would go over for me now. Anyway, all right, that got out of hand. The last book I read in March of 1995 was Fletch Reflected by Gregory Mcdonald. I believe this is the last Fletch book. Whether or not it's the last one written, but I don't know, but the last one chronologically. And it actually focuses on Fletch's son, who he met in the previous book. Excuse me. And in this, let's see. So it says on the back, Fletch's newfound son Jack has just heard from an old flame who's about to marry a billionaire's son, until her future father-in-law suffers several near-fatal accidents. So he's going to go investigate. So he goes to this resort where the wedding party is. He's undercover as the pool boy. And this guy, this inventor guy, created, this is something that I never quite understood. He created the perfect mirror. And so it shows, if you look in this mirror, it keeps talking about how it doesn't transpose your reflection. So this is my right-hand side. When I'm looking in a mirror, technically, if I were looking at another person, that would be their... I'm seeing my hand up like this, but that would be a person's left side. So in the perfect mirror, if I hold my right hand up, I'm seeing my reflection. The hand is being held up on this side. So I'm seeing me as other people see me, which makes the reflection more accurate. Something like that. I'm like, it's a mirror. I know what I'm looking at. But apparently this is supposed to be some fancy mirror. Anyway, all of that aside, I liked the first book with Fletch's son Jack a little better, but this is still good. It's still Fletch. It's still Gregory Mcdonald. It's fun. I liked the other one. Let me see if I should know what the title is off the top of my head. It is Son of Fletch. That makes sense. So Son of Fletch, and then Fletch Reflected. But well worth it. I would recommend any of the Fletch books, or all of the Fletch books, for good, lighthearted mysteries with interesting characters. I mean, not always lighthearted, but I mean, Fletch is a smartass. His son's a smartass. But good stuff. Good times. Pardon me. But that's it. That's all I read in March of 1995. Those 5 books. I did not think of a question for this video. I guess, all right, I'll ask you this. Would you have any interest in facsimile copies of old books? Valancourt has put out these paperbacks from hell books. So Grady Hendrix has been curating, I guess, and he's done some of the introductions that are in them, and some other people have done the introductions. They try to get the original cover art, but they're not facsimiles. I assume they're cleaning up any mistakes. But I once belonged to a book club when I was in the Air Force that made facsimiles of classics. The one I remember having was The Great Gatsby. So it was an exact replica of the original publication of The Great Gatsby. All the mistakes that were in the original publication, and of course, the only difference being there's an introduction. But other than that, the paper, the font, the mistakes, as I said, the cover, all of that is, and maybe there wasn't even an introduction in the book. It may have come with like a little flyer that gave you all that information to keep the facsimile accurate. It's been a long time. But I like that kind of thing. I thought that was a cool club. I was in quite a few book clubs when I was in the Air Force, but when I went to Iceland, I canceled all of them because it was just too much of a hassle. But I think that's a cool thing, and I would like to see it with more like old horror paperbacks. I've got all the paperbacks from hell that Valancourt has put out, and I don't know, the used bookstores around here that I get to, I never seem to catch them at the right time. Maybe I'm not finding a lot of these paperbacks from hell type books, and I would love to see, as I said, a replicas of them, and not even necessarily just those. It could be other. I read science fiction. I read other genres. It would be interesting to have facsimile editions. I'm not as passionate about this as I am about some other things. It would just be kind of cool. Is that something that would interest you? That's what I'm asking. Let me know in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All that YouTube stuff. And if you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is EricSmith5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. That is all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.